Aye. What? Look.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you all for your likes, shares, comments, and subscriptions. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. It is a rainy Wednesday, and it has given me the opportunity to pause for a moment. You will hear some rain and some thunder in the background. Either that is going to relax you, not bother you, or, whatever the case may be. Just a heads up. But I wanted to share my thoughts a minute, and what I realized in this moment is that some things in life that we are facing and that we are dealing with, that we are fighting against, is actually just bigger than us. And I want to say, and that's okay, but in actuality, it's not. But it's better to just accept the fact that certain things are larger than you. Certain things that we are standing up against, fighting against injustice and equality and unfairness, certain things are just bigger. Confirmation. Certain things are just bigger. And it can become exhausting to fight against. It can become quite taxing on our mental and our physical health to fight against certain things we should not be having to deal with, but we are. In my case, I have come to the realization that a lot of these things that I'm up against, a lot of these people that I'm up against, of course, I understand now that it is a lot of government officials, and that is bigger than me. And while I do have the courage to stand up for myself, and I do have the constant courage to speak up and speak out, I'm understanding more that these are sophisticated criminals. And I took a moment to, and it's so crazy because those words popped up in my mind like over and over again, well, a few times before, but I never really looked into what it actually meant. And when I did, I found out that it was basically confirmation of what I had already knew. Sophisticated criminals are individuals who have direct contact to individuals who are in law enforcement, people who have direct contact or sometimes even indirect contact, but they have ways of hiding their crimes, be it being calculated, no matter how long it takes them plan out a specific thing, a specific crime. They have access or indirect access, or know someone who has access to certain networks and systems. They have individuals who work in banks, individuals who work in, like I said, law enforcement, individuals who work where they need to work in order to get the access, whether or not they are on the front lines of it or not. They are still in the midst of it. And this is why certain people include individuals, nameless faces. This is why they include individuals to do the crime, but they're behind the scenes delegating and directing people on what to do. I talked about how my credit card got, I showed y'all the video about what happened when I was at the gas station. This is not the first time that has happened to me. In fact, there was another bank that I had where those people took a large amount of money from me as well, and they hid it with those individuals that were in the midst of that banking institution as well. These are individuals who like to make it seem like you're making things up when they know that you're not. And in fact, their motto has been to act like you don't know what's going on, but in actuality you do. In a lot of these cases, they'll say that you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, that's just crazy, you're crazy, X, Y, and Z, something is wrong with you, when in actuality there is something wrong with them. A lot of narcissists and individuals who have these type of mental disorders will they will project what it is that they're dealing with onto you. In speaking up and speaking out against what's been going on, it has caused, I guess, maybe more attention onto them because they wanted it to be quiet, but it's not. And I honestly feel like, I honestly believe that this is something that they have done to so many people. So many people. And whether or not those people have stood up for themselves, I don't know. But this is what I'm choosing to do on my journey. In my journey, I cannot just sit here and allow this to happen to me. I've made several reports, like thousands of reports in regards to what's been going on, and a lot of the cases have been closed because of who they are. Like I said, they have police officers, they have people making lawmakers, okay? People working for the city, people who are in school districts, people who are in hospitals. Imagine not being able to trust your chiropractor after being in a car accident that was set up by those individuals. They have doctors, they have lawyers. Imagine trying to go to a lawyer to seek justice in regards to what's happening, and it's one of their family members or an individual who is in association to that family, so that you won't receive actual justice and that you're not receiving what it is that you're supposed to receive. These are organized crimes, sophisticated criminals. Okay? There used to be a time where I was able to go to the doctor and it just be not a weird setting. It used to be a place where I could go and actually trust my medical care provider, or without it being so weird, without me being watched. It used to be a time where I could go to the bank without it being weird, without me being watched. It used to be a time where I could go to the grocery store without it being where I'm followed around. You know what I mean? Just yesterday, I had to go and replace a tire. I couldn't even go and replace a tire because somebody pulled up, and those were one of the individuals who was stalking me and trying to get me on camera and what it was that I was doing. Everywhere that I go, normal tasks that certain people like you, certain people can go. You can go to the grocery store without it being an issue. You can go and pick up a loaf of bread, place it in your basket, and you're not being followed around. Normal tasks like going to the park. You can go to the park and you're not being followed and somebody not watching you from a vehicle or walking around where you are. You can have a conversation without it being monitored or someone listening and tapping your phone. These are things that I'm dealing with right now that I should not be dealing with. And I'm understanding more and more each day that this is bigger than me. This is bigger than what I'm capable of handling all alone. And it is meant to be that way because they don't want me to receive the help. But in certain instances like this, you have to understand that when things are bigger than you, you have to give those things over to someone or entity that is bigger than you. Whoever that entity, whatever it is that you believe in, if you have been following me for a while, I don't judge and I don't care. But there are certain times where you have to give it to someone who is bigger than you. Me having to fight against organizations, companies, and police, going to the police, as you have seen, is taxing and traumatizing enough. I am having to make police reports every day, multiple times a week, if not, because they continue to do things to me, follow me every day. They pull up in my area where I live like they live here, regardless of the police reports that have been made. They're still following me. There are still, and it's multiple people, and I've noticed they always want to know, how do I know what I know? Every single person asks me, how do you know? And there was a time where I would tell the police officers how I knew. But then I understood, and even then my intuition told me not to. But they have a way of being so intimidating to get information out of you. But there was a time when I would tell them how I knew. And then I started to realize that they weren't asking me that because they wanted to help me. They were asking me that to see what it was that I knew and to change up the way in the way that they did certain things to me. So for instance, the last time I spoke to a police officer about the stalker who had his family member. Really, the culprit of it all is that female who wants to be hidden, who wants to be sneaky, who wants to be undetected. You all up in it. Everything leads back to you. You're not slick. But anyway, she started it by sending her family. And now the rest of the family is following me, showing up to places where I am. And they want to know how I know what I know. They want to know how, like so badly, they want to know how I know, how it is that I know. So if I say, I'm not even going to go into detail about it right now, but I would tell them, and then they just switched it up. They'll just switch up whatever it is. Now, most recently, when I mentioned something of how I knew what they were doing, now they're sending something different, is all I'm going to say. I'm not even going to go into it. But the tactics never stop. The bullying and the harassing never stops. The stealing never stops. And it's so crazy because there's like so much I want to say, but I'm learning to be wise, more wise with my words. But I'm not even going to go into that. What I will say is sometimes we just have to hand things over to God, because we will exhaust ourselves trying to fight against this and trying to fight against that and trying to speak up for this and trying to speak up for that. And I'm not telling you not to fight. And I'm not telling you not to, speak up. Never will I tell you to be silent. But you have to know when to give yourself grace and to let Spirit take care of what Spirit needs to take care of. And that's just that. Giving yourself grace is needed in times like these. And I don't know what type of battles you may be facing and what type of things you may be fighting in your life. But sometimes every fighter needs a break. That's why when you watch boxing, that's one of my things. Love boxing. That's why sometimes, in the rounds, they give you just enough time to fight. And then you go back in your corner. And you go back in your corner and you get refreshed, Somebody speaks some motivation into you. And a lot of times you may not even have nobody speak no motivation into you. Sometimes it's just yourself. Maybe it's your spirit guides. But in that time when you in your corner and you are at rest and you're getting those words spoken into you, and maybe it's just your affirmations and maybe it's just yourself reminding you who the fuck you are. By the time you get up out that corner, by the time you are done with your rest, you better knock a motherfucker out. O-U-T out. And you know what? You can be at a point where you're just so weakened. And you can be at a point where you feel like, what was Nip said? Plenty of times I felt like I was, there, what he said at the last, I'm going to have to find, I know exactly what song that is. God, I can't remember the lyrics, but anyway. But sometimes you feel weakened. And you feel like you out for the count. And then out of nowhere, you just get this strength, that comes out of nowhere. You get this motivation and this push and that energy to fight again. And that's spirit. Spirit. That is spirit giving you the extra push to fight. That is spirit giving you the extra motivation to get through it, you know. Spirit will give you what you need, will supply what it is that you need, that energy, the mindset to finish that round, to win that fight. And you will be wondering, people will be wondering where all of it even came from. Where did this come from? How did you do this? How were you able to do this? You ever been in a situation like that where people want to know, how did you have the courage to do this? How in the world did you complete that after all of this? How did you? And it's God. There is no other explanation other than it being God. You know? So sometimes we just have to let God take over. Right? We have to let God take over the situation. Let God take over the battle. Let God take over the fight. Let God handle the fight. And give yourself grace. Give yourself rest. Give yourself an opportunity, because we can't handle it all. If you in a situation where you're dealing with something like me, organized crimes, these people are sophisticated in doing things like this. They've done this for years, so they've been able to study individuals. They know when a person is going to do this. They know when a person is going to make a right. They know when a person is going to make a left. They know when a person is going to back out. They know when a person, like, people will study you. And that's one of the things that I know that they were doing when he had his family member watching me for AP, studying me, my body language, how I move, when I go to the restroom, when I go here, telling me when to go to lunch and things like that. I couldn't even go to my lunch at whatever time I wanted to go, despite it not being busy. They needed me to adhere to a specific schedule for them, not for the company, but for them. They needed to know where I was at all times. They needed to know what I was doing at all times. That's insecurity. And that's an organized crime. They needed to see me at all times. They needed to know what I was doing. They needed to know who I was talking to. They had people that were pretending to be shoppers. They had people who, their family members, coming up to my register trying to infiltrate me into crimes. And when I said no, then I was punished. They have people right now today, even when I do deliveries, having me to deliver to police officers, having me to deliver to their family members, trying to infiltrate me into crimes, trying to set me up, taking things from me. And they hide it so well because they have people who are working in my company, people who are working in law enforcement, people who are working in the doctor's offices, people who are working, who are living in the complexes where I was living, and near the homes where I stayed, and speaking to my family and connecting to my family despite me ever even mentioning them or introducing them to my family. I've never introduced you to my family, yet you are fraternizing and talking to them and laying in their beds, sleeping with my family, procreating with my family, making deals with my family. Everything is organized. This is not something that these individuals just started doing. This is something that has been taking place over time to other people. And they feel comfortable with doing it because they've done it to so many people. And when you speak out against something that is so huge, because I mean, think about it. When you speak up against people who are so huge and a crime ring that is so huge, of course they're going to say that person is insane. Nobody is going to do this. I am a doctor. I am the mayor. I am a police officer. I am the chief of such and such, and who gives a fuck? Of course, they're going to tell you that you're crazy because they don't want people to look into what they're doing. Of course. Nobody needs to rattle that cage because it's organized, it's sophisticated, it's criminal in every way. It's supposed to look legit. So that's why they go and get a lawyer. It's supposed to look legit. So that's why they include higher up individuals. So people will say, no, that is such and such. That person would never do that. It's supposed to look legit. That's why they go and get churches involved. That's why you see certain people working for churches and shit now. That's why you see people like, no. Oh, that's the pastor. I'll get the pastor to speak up for me. And the pastor, you remember? I don't even want to do that movie. But yeah, this is why people even have church organizations that will lie and set you up. It happened to me. Those officers planted stuff on me. They set me up to get that ticket. And they sent me to that area where they knew that the officers would give me that ticket. And I had to do community service through a church. And that church was also connected to people that set me up. They sent people in to say slick shit to me. They sent people in to even try to fight me, to start fights with me at a church. That's how evil, malicious, and calculated these people are. They sent people in to tell me certain things that they have done to confirm what I already knew. Some people want you to fly off the handle just so they can say, see, I told you that person such and such and such. See, I told you something wrong with that person. But all the while they're provoking you and setting you up. Some things are bigger than you. And you have to let God take over. And it can feel like, okay, well, when is God going to step in? And how long is this supposed to go on before he handles this situation, before he handles these people? But he will. And when people start getting that karma and when people start getting handled, they want to say, oh, that person did this to me and that person sent some work to me. And maybe you did, and sometimes shit like that is justified. But you have to know that certain things require a higher power to get your justice. It does. Certain things require a higher power to get your justice. Because nobody is going to continue to lay down and be drugged through the dirt. And nobody's going to be a punching bag for individuals who have mental issues and deeply seated wounds that they don't care to put the effort into healing. Nobody's going to be a punching bag, a stress ball for individuals who don't want to do the work. So yes, in your situation, if it is bigger than you, greater than you, I am not telling you to be silent and I am not telling you to fight. But there is a different way that you need to fight, and that requires a higher power. So that is the message I have for y'all. Thank y'all for listening. And until next time.
Aye. What? Look.